She is my fiancé. The arena fell silent as Frederick Langston's voice thundered, unveiling a truth that turned humiliation into triumph. Where are you tuning in from today? Miami? London? Drop your city in the comments. What happens when a fearless black aerialist soaring on a silver hoop faces sabotage and scorn from a rival who can't stand her brilliance? Did you see this twist coming? This isn't just a story of drama. It's a lesson in resilience and justice that'll leave you speechless. Stick with us to the end to uncover how one woman's grace rewrites the stage. Don't miss our latest stories. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Share your thoughts below. What would you do in her shoes? Let's get this conversation soaring. The Luminos Arena stood like a beacon against the Miami skyline, its glass dome catching the last rays of a coral-streaked sunset and scattering them into prisms of fire and gold. Inside, the air thrummed with the electric pulse of anticipation, a heady mix of expensive cologne, polished metal, and the faint hum of expectation from a crowd dressed in silks and tailored suits. This was no ordinary night. The gala celebrated Horizon Enterprises' bold leap into a new era of tech innovation, a vision spearheaded by billionaire Frederick Langston, whose name alone drew investors, influencers, and Miami's elite like moths to a flame. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen constellations, their light dancing across velvet drapes and marble floors, while a string quartet's soft melody wove through the chatter, setting a rhythm for the evening's grandeur. Backstage, the world was different, grittier, alive with the clatter of rigging and the low hum of performers warming up. Serena Brooks moved through this chaos with the grace of a panther, her long jet-black hair cascading down her back like a river of ink, catching the dim glow of stage lights. At 28, she was a vision, her deep brown eyes sharp with focus, her mahogany skin glowing under the faint sheen of exertion. Her sapphire leotard hugged her lithe frame, its sequins shimmering with every step, a silent promise of the spectacle to come. Serena was no mere performer. She was a professional aerialist, a master of silks and hoops whose every spin defied gravity with a precision that felt almost supernatural. Tonight, she would command a silver hoop suspended 30 feet above the arena, the centerpiece of a performance meant to embody Horizon's soaring ambitions. Serena's fingers traced the cool metal of her hoop, checking its anchors with the meticulous care of someone who knew the cost of a single mistake. Her breath was steady, her pulse calm despite the weight of the evening. This wasn't just a show, it was personal. Frederick, her fiancé, had asked her to headline the gala, a nod to their shared love of art's power to inspire. Yet she'd insisted on keeping their engagement a secret, her ring tucked away in a velvet box at home. She wanted her work to stand alone, not as the future wife of a billionaire, but as Serena Brooks, the aerialist who could make an audience forget to breathe. To the world, she was a star rising on her own terms, her talent a quiet rebellion against anyone who dared underestimate her. The backstage air was thick with the scent of rosin and sweat, the clank of carabiners mingling with the performers' hushed banter. Serena stretched her arms, her muscles coiling and releasing like a dancer's, her focus unbroken even as a shadow fell across her path. Hannah Prescott, a white aerialist with a sharp jawline and hair like spun ice, sauntered by, her green eyes glinting with something colder than the steel rigging above. Hannah was no stranger to the spotlight, her performances technically flawless, but her reputation was tarnished by a bitterness that clung to her like a second skin. She'd headlined for years until Serena joined the troupe, her effortless charisma and daring routine stealing the attention Hannah craved. The rivalry was unspoken but palpable, a current crackling beneath their every interaction. "Careful with that hoop tonight," Hannah said, her voice smooth as velvet but sharp with mockery. She paused, adjusting her own costume, a silver leotard that mirrored Serena's but lacked its warmth. "Wouldn't want you to fall in front of all these important people." Her lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes, a challenge disguised as concern. Serena met her gaze, unflinching, her own smile small but steady. "I don't fall," she said, her tone calm yet laced with steel. She turned back to her warm-up, rolling her shoulders, her long hair swaying like a pendulum. Hannah's smirk lingered, but Serena let it slide off her like water. She had a performance to deliver, and no amount of venom would shake her focus. The arena's lights dimmed, signaling the gala's start. The crowd's chatter softened, replaced by the resonant voice of Frederick Langston as he took the stage. Tall and commanding in a charcoal suit, his green eyes sparkled with a mix of pride and purpose. His silver-flecked hair caught the spotlight, and his presence filled the room like a tide. "Tonight," he said, his voice carrying the weight of a man who built empires, "we celebrate not just innovation, but the artistry that fuels it. Horizon Enterprises is about pushing boundaries, and tonight's performance will show you what that looks like." The crowd erupted in applause, their excitement a living thing, but Frederick's gaze flickered briefly to the wings where Serena stood, her silhouette barely visible against the velvet curtain. It was a glance no one else noticed, a silent promise between them. Serena exhaled, her fingers brushing the hoop one last time. The stage crew signaled her cue, and the quartet's melody shifted to a haunting cello solo, its notes rising like a call to the heavens. Her heart quickened, not from nerves but from the thrill of what was to come. She stepped into the wings, her flat silent on the polished floor, her body poised like a coiled spring. The hoop descended from the ceiling, a silver moon gleaming under the indigo lights. This was her moment, her stage, her chance to weave a story in the air. Every spin would be a brushstroke, every drop a heartbeat, every pose a declaration of who she was. The crowd's anticipation pressed against her like a physical force, but Serena was ready. She'd trained for years, her body honed to bend. Without breaking, her mind sharpened to push past fear. She thought briefly of Frederick, of the quiet evenings they'd spent dreaming of nights like this, where art and ambition intertwined. He'd wanted to announce their engagement tonight, to share their joy with the world, but she'd asked for time. "Let me earn this," she'd told him, her voice soft but firm. "Let me be Serena first." He'd nodded, his love for her outweighing his instinct to shield her. Now, as the lights shifted and the music swelled, she felt the weight of that choice. Not a burden, but a spark. Hannah's taunt echoed faintly in her mind, but Serena pushed it aside. She didn't perform for Hannah or the skeptics or even the crowd. She performed for herself, for the girl who'd climbed ropes in a dusty gym, dreaming of stages like this. The crew chief nodded, and the hoop's cables hummed as they tightened. Serena stepped forward, her long hair catching the light like a raven's wing, her sapphire costume a beacon in the dark. The arena held its breath, and so did she, not out of doubt, but out of reverence for the moment. The stage was set, the lights were hers, and Serena Brooks was ready to soar. The Luminos Arena plunged into darkness, a velvet void broken only by the indigo pulse of a single spotlight. The haunting wail of a cello rose, its notes curling through the air like smoke, wrapping the crowd in a spell of anticipation. Serena Brooks stood poised in the wings, her sapphire leotard catching the faint glow like a fragment of the night sky. Her long, jet-black hair swayed as she exhaled, her deep brown eyes locked on the silver hoop descending from the ceiling, its cables humming softly like a distant heartbeat. The audience, Miami's elite, investors, and influencers, leaned forward, their murmurs fading into a collective hush. This was the moment they'd been promised, the centerpiece of Horizon Enterprises' gala, and Serena was its pulse. She stepped into the spotlight, her movements fluid, deliberate, a dancer's grace honed by years of defying gravity. The hoop gleamed, a perfect circle of steel suspended 30 feet above the marble floor, its surface polished to mirror the arena's chandeliers. Serena gripped its edge, her fingers steady, her muscles coiling with quiet power. With a single, effortless pull, she launched upward, her body spiraling as the hoop rose. The crowd gasped, a sharp inhale that echoed her ascent. Her hair trailed like a comet's tail, catching the light in a cascade of obsidian waves. Each spin was a brushstroke, each twist a poem, her body bending the air into shapes that felt impossible. Yet there she was, making the impossible sing. The cello's melody deepened, its rhythm quickening as Serena executed a series of daring drops. She plummeted, the hoop spinning, only to catch herself mid-air, her legs arcing into a perfect split that drew a ripple of awe from the crowd. Her face remained serene, a mask of focus that belied the storm of effort within. Every muscle worked in harmony, her breath synchronized with the music's pulse. The audience was spellbound, their eyes tracing her every move, her arms extended, like wings, her body folding and unfolding in a dance with the air itself. To them, she was magic, a vision of grace that made the arena feel infinite. But halfway through her routine, a tremor ran through the hoop. It was subtle, a faint wobble in the steel that no one in the crowd noticed, but to Serena, it was a scream. Her sharp eyes darted to the anchor point above, where a bolt gleamed at an odd angle, its threads loosened just enough to disrupt the rig's balance. Her heart kicked against her ribs, not from fear but from instinct honed by years of training. Something was wrong, deliberately wrong. She adjusted her grip, redistributing her weight to counter the tremor, her movements so seamless the audience saw only artistry, not danger. The hoop steadied, but the warning lingered in her mind like a shadow. Serena pushed forward, her body spinning faster, her legs slicing through the air in a double pirouette. The crowd roared, mistaking her intensity for flair, unaware of the battle she waged against the compromised rig. She could feel the bolt's instability, a faint vibration humming through the metal with every twist. Her mind raced, piecing together the sabotage. Hannah Prescott's mocking words backstage, "Careful with that hoop tonight," flashed through her thoughts, but she buried them. There was no room for distraction, not when she was 30 feet up, with 1,000 eyes on her and a hoop threatening to betray her. The music swelled, signaling her final sequence. Serena climbed higher, her hands gripping the hoop's upper rung as she prepared for the climax. A breathtaking drop into a suspended split, her body framed against the arena's glass dome like a star against the night. The crowd held its breath, the silence so thick it seemed to press against her skin. She released, plummeting in a controlled spiral, her hair fanning out like a dark halo. At the last second, she caught the hoop, her legs extending into a perfect split mid-air, her silhouette etched against the indigo light. The arena erupted, applause crashing like waves, cheers echoing off the walls. She'd done it. She'd turned a sabotaged rig into a masterpiece. Serena descended, her feet touching the marble floor with the lightness of a feather. The spotlight followed her, bathing her in a glow that made her sapphire costume shimmer like liquid starlight. She bowed slightly, her smile radiant but restrained, her chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. The crowd was on its feet, their ovation a tide of admiration, but Serena's mind was elsewhere. As she stepped back into the wings, her fingers brushed the hoop's anchor, confirming her suspicion. The bolt was loose, deliberately tampered with, a hair's breadth from failure. Her jaw tightened, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the backstage chaos. Hannah stood near a rack of costumes, her silver leotard catching the dim light, her arms crossed with a smirk that didn't quite hide her unease. "Lucky you didn't." "Crash," she said, her voice low, almost swallowed by the crew's chatter. Serena's gaze locked onto hers, steady and unyielding, but she didn't respond. She wouldn't give Hannah the satisfaction of a reaction, not yet. Instead, she turned to a stagehand, her voice calm but firm. "Check the rigging before the encore," she said. "Something's off." The stagehand nodded, his brow furrowing, as he hurried to inspect the hoop. Serena moved to a quiet corner, stretching her arms to ease the tension in her shoulders. Her performance had been a triumph, but the sabotage gnawed at her. She'd trained for chaos, for moments when instinct trumped fear. But this was different. This was personal. Hannah's resentment had always simmered beneath the surface, her barbs sharp but never this dangerous. Serena's mind flickered to Frederick, seated in the VIP section, his green eyes likely fixed on her with pride. He didn't know about the loosened bolt, didn't know the risk she'd just faced. She hadn't told him about Hannah's taunts, either, not wanting to burden him on a night that meant so much to them both. The crowd's applause still echoed faintly, a reminder of what she'd achieved. She'd turned sabotage into art, danger into beauty, and she wasn't done yet. The encore awaited, a duet that would push her even further, requiring trust in a rig she now knew was compromised. Serena closed her eyes, her breath steadying as she visualized the routine. She saw the hoop, the spins, the moment when she and her partner would move as one. She saw the crowd, their faces alight with wonder, and she saw herself, rising above it all, her grace a quiet rebellion against anyone who dared to dim her light. The stage manager's voice crackled through her earpiece. 5 minutes to encore. Serena opened her eyes, her resolve hardening like steel. She adjusted her leotard, her fingers brushing the sequins that still held the light. The cello's melody lingered in her mind, a call to climb, to soar, to reclaim the stage. Whatever Hannah had planned, Serena would meet it head-on. Not with anger, but with the unshakable strength of a woman who knew exactly who she was. The Luminos Arena pulsed with the afterglow of Serena Brooks's solo performance. The crowd's applause still a faint echo in the air, as the lights shifted to a softer amber hue. Backstage, the scent of rosin and metal lingered, mingling with the sharp tang of adrenaline. Serena stood in the wings, her sapphire leotard catching the dim glow of a work light, her long jet-black hair pulled back tightly to keep it from tangling in the rigging. Her deep brown eyes scanned the silver hoop, now being rechecked by a stagehand after her earlier warning. The loosened bolt from her first performance had been tightened, but a knot of unease tightened in her chest. The sabotage had been no accident, and the encore, a duet requiring perfect synchronization with her partner Lila, would test her trust in the equipment and herself. The cello's haunting melody faded, replaced by a vibrant orchestral score that signaled the next act. Serena's heart beat steady, her resolve a quiet fire. She stepped toward the hoop, her fingers brushing its cool surface as Lila joined her, a petite brunette with a quick smile and unwavering trust in Serena's lead. "Ready?" Lila whispered, her eyes bright with excitement. Serena nodded, her face calm but her mind racing. The duet was intricate, a dance of shared weight and split-second timing, with both aerialists weaving through the hoop's arcs in a display of harmony. The crowd, still buzzing from Serena's solo, leaned forward, their anticipation a tangible weight. The spotlight snapped on, bathing the hoop in a golden glow as it rose, its cables humming softly. Serena and Lila gripped opposite sides, their bodies launching upward in unison, their movements mirrored like reflections in a still lake. The music surged, violins slicing through the air as Serena spun, her legs extending in a graceful arc, while Lila countered with a mirrored twist. The hoop turned, a silver axis for their orbit, and the audience gasped, captivated by the seamless interplay. Serena's hair fanned out, a dark cascade that caught the light like a raven's wing, her sapphire costume shimmering with every turn. But as she reached for the hoop's upper rung to begin a synchronized drop, the rig jerked violently, a sickening lurch that tilted it off balance. The crowd's gasp was sharper now, a collective flinch, but Serena's instincts kicked in like a reflex. Her hands tightened, her core engaging to steady the hoop as she shot a glance at Lila, whose wide eyes mirrored her own alarm. "Hold on," Serena mouthed, her voice lost to the music but her calm unwavering. She swung her body to counterbalance, the tilt, her muscles straining as she guided the hoop back to stability. Lila followed her lead, her trust absolute, their movements adapting to the chaos with a grace that disguised the danger. The audience, unaware of the sabotage, roared with applause, mistaking the recovery for choreography. Serena's mind raced, her suspicions hardening. The bolt had been checked, yet the rig was compromised again. Hannah's handiwork, she was certain. The memory of Hannah's smirk backstage, her taunting, "lucky you didn't crash," burned in her thoughts, but she pushed it aside. The stage was no place for anger. It was a place for control. The music climbed toward its crescendo, and Serena signaled Lila for the next sequence. a daring maneuver where they would swap positions mid-spin, their hands brushing as they passed through the hoop's center. The rig trembled again, a faint vibration that Serena felt through her palms, but she refused to falter. She locked eyes with Lila, a silent promise passing between them, and they moved. Serena released, her body curling into a tight spin as Lila mirrored her, their fingers grazing in a fleeting moment of connection. The hoop stabilized, their combined weight forcing it into balance, and they landed the move with breathtaking precision. The crowd erupted, their cheers a tidal wave that crashed against the arena's glass dome. Serena's chest heaved, her breath steady but her pulse hammering. The sabotage had been deliberate, calculated to humiliate her, yet she'd turned it into triumph. She and Lila descended, their landing soft as whispers on the marble floor. The spotlight followed, bathing them in light as they bowed. Serena's smile composed, but her eyes blazing with a fire only she understood. The audience was on its feet, their ovation a testament to a performance that felt like magic, oblivious to the battle she'd fought 30 feet above them. Backstage, the crew buzzed with quiet urgency. A stagehand already inspecting the hoop's cables, his face grim as he noted another tampered bolt. Serena stepped into the wings, her hands trembling. Not from fear, but from the sheer effort of restraint. Lila touched her arm, her voice low. "That wasn't right, was it?" Serena shook her head, her jaw tight. "Someone wants me to fail," she said, her tone measured but laced with steel. She glanced across the backstage area where Hannah Prescott stood, her silver leotard glinting as she adjusted her hair with feigned nonchalance. Their eyes met, and Hannah's smirk flickered, a crack in her armor that betrayed her guilt. Serena didn't confront her. She didn't need to. The stage had been her battleground, and she'd won. The stage manager's voice crackled through. Her earpiece. "Final bow in 2 minutes." Serena nodded, wiping a bead of sweat from her brow. Her costume clung to her skin, the sequins still catching the light like scattered stars. She thought of Frederick, seated in the VIP section, his green eyes likely fixed on her with pride and love. He didn't know about the sabotage, didn't know the risk she'd faced twice now. She hadn't told him about Hannah's taunts, not wanting to cast a shadow over his night, but the weight of it pressed against her, a reminder that some battles were fought in silence. As she prepared for the bow, Serena's mind settled into a quiet resolve. The encore had been a test, not just of her skill, but of her resilience. She'd faced a rigged hoop, a rival's malice, and the pressure of 1,000 watching eyes, yet she hadn't flinched. Her hands steadied, her breath evened, and she straightened, her long hair falling like a curtain of strength. The music softened, a signal for the performers to gather center stage. Serena stepped forward, Lila at her side, their presence a quiet defiance. The crowd's applause lingered, a warm tide that washed over her. But it was her own certainty that anchored her. She'd turned sabotage into art, danger into beauty, and she wasn't done yet. The final bow was coming, and Serena Brooks would face it as she always did, fearless, graceful, and unyielding. The Luminos Arena exhaled as the final notes of the orchestral score faded, the amber light softening to a warm glow that bathed the marble stage. The crowd, still buzzing from Serena Brooks' breathtaking duet, settled into a restless hush, their eyes fixed on the performers gathered for the final bow. Serena stood center stage, her sapphire leotard shimmering like a fragment of the night, her long jet-black hair a dark cascade framing her poised figure. Her deep brown eyes were steady, her breath even, but beneath her calm exterior burned a quiet fire, fueled by the sabotage she'd overcome and the weight of 1,000 gazes. Lila, her duet partner, stood beside her, offering a subtle nod of solidarity. The air crackled with anticipation, the gala's energy teetering on the edge of something unspoken. Then, Hannah Prescott stepped forward, her silver leotard glinting like a blade under the spotlight. She seized the microphone from the MC, with a practiced flick of her wrist, her icy blonde hair catching the light as she tilted her head with a venomous smile. The crowd quieted, expecting a gracious acknowledgement of the night's performances. Instead, Hannah's voice sliced through the arena like a whip. "Let's be real," she said, her tone sharp enough to draw blood. "Some people don't belong in this spotlight. You all saw that mess. She nearly brought the whole rig down. Stick to the ground, sweetheart. This stage isn't for you." The words landed like a slap, each syllable calculated to humiliate, to strip Serena of the triumph she'd earned. The arena froze, the silence so thick it seemed to choke the air. Serena stood unmoving, her posture regal, her eyes locked on Hannah's with a calm that was more powerful than rage. The crowd stirred, murmurs of outrage rippling through the seats. A woman in a velvet gown whispered, "That's uncalled for," her voice tight with indignation. A man nearby shook his head, muttering, "She's out of line." Serena's face betrayed nothing, no flinch, no tears, only a quiet dignity that made Hannah's cruelty seem small, petty, a shadow cast against the star. But the sting was there, a hot coal in her chest, not from shame but from the audacity of someone who thought they could break her in front of the world. Then, a figure rose from the VIP section, his silhouette cutting through the crowd like a blade through silk. Frederick Langston, tall and commanding in his charcoal suit, strode onto the stage with a presence that silenced the murmurs. His green eyes blazed with controlled fury, his silver-flecked hair catching the spotlight as he moved. The crowd parted, their whispers fading into a collective hush. Hannah's smirk faltered, her confidence cracking as Frederick approached, his steps deliberate, each one a verdict. He took the microphone from her trembling hand, his grip firm but calm, and turned to face the arena. "That's enough," he said, his voice low, resonant, a thunderclap wrapped in velvet. "You came to my event, sabotaged my performer's equipment, and now you insult her in front of my guests. You've shown us exactly who you are, Hannah." The arena held its breath, the weight of his words settling like a storm cloud. Hannah's face paled, her lips parting as if to protest, but no sound came. Frederick turned to Serena, his eyes softening, a warmth breaking through the steel of his expression. "This woman," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the arena, "is not just the soul of this performance. She is my fiancé, Serena Brooks, the future Mrs. Langston." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, a wave of shock and awe that crashed against the glass dome. Serena's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise, but her composure held, her strength a quiet anchor in the storm of revelation. Frederick reached into his jacket, his movements deliberate, and drew out a velvet box. The crowd leaned forward, their anticipation a living thing. He opened it, revealing a $5 million diamond ring, its facets catching the light like a captured star. Kneeling before Serena, he took her hand, his touch gentle but unyielding. "You've always been my light," he said, his voice thick with emotion, each word a vow. "Tonight you've shown the world what grace under pressure looks like." He slid the ring onto her finger, the diamond blazing against her mahogany skin, a symbol of love and defiance. Serena's breath caught, her eyes shimmering, not with tears but with pride, with the weight of a moment she hadn't expected but embraced fully. The arena erupted, cheers and applause thundering through the space, echoing off the walls like a tidal wave. Guests stood, their hands clapping in a rhythm of admiration, not just for the spectacle but for the justice unfolding before them. Serena squeezed Frederick's hand, her smile quiet but radiant, a beacon of resilience that outshone the diamond. On her finger, Hannah stood frozen, her face drained of color, her earlier bravado reduced to ash. The reality of her actions, the sabotage, the cruelty, the public shaming, crashed over her like a wave she couldn't outrun. Her eyes darted to the crowd, to the exits, anywhere but Frederick's unwavering gaze. "You're done here," Frederick said, his tone cold, final, a verdict carved in stone. "Leave my event. You're not welcome at Horizon or any venue I own." His words were a blade cutting through Hannah's last shred of poise. Security appeared at the stage's edge, two figures in black suits moving with quiet efficiency. Hannah's lips trembled, her hands clutching her purse as if it could anchor her. "This is a mistake," she stammered, her voice cracking. But Frederick's expression didn't waver. The security team flanked her, their presence a silent command. She turned, her heels clicking frantically against the marble as she stumbled. Through the crowd, her silver leotard a fading glimmer in the sea of faces. The audience watched, some with disapproval, others with curiosity, all aware that a line had been crossed and a price paid. Phones lit up, capturing the moment: Hannah's retreat, Serena's triumph, Frederick's stand. Within minutes, clips would flood social media, hashtags like Serena Shines already forming in the digital ether. But on stage, Serena remained still, her hand in Frederick's, the ring a quiet weight on her finger. She hadn't asked for this moment, hadn't needed the world to know her truth. But now that it was here, she stood in it fully, unapologetic, unbroken, a woman who'd faced malice and risen above it. The crowd's cheers softened, replaced by a steady applause, not loud but sincere, a tribute to justice, to love, to a woman who'd turned cruelty into a stage for her strength. Frederick stepped back, his hand lingering on Serena's, a silent promise that this was only the beginning. She met his gaze, her eyes steady, a nod passing between them that needed no words. The spotlight lingered, bathing them in light, but it was Serena's presence, her grace, her resilience that held the arena captive. She wasn't just an aerialist, not just a fiancé. She was Serena Brooks, a force who'd claimed the stage and refused to be dimmed. The Luminos Arena exhaled as the echo of applause faded, the amber light softening to a warm glow that draped the marble stage like a velvet curtain. Serena Brooks stood in the wings, her sapphire leotard still catching the faint shimmer of the stage lights, the $5 million diamond ring on her finger glinting like a captured star. Her long, jet-black hair fell in waves down her back, framing her mahogany skin as she adjusted her costume for the gala's final act. The air buzzed with the aftermath of Frederick Langston's revelation, the crowd still murmuring about the dramatic expulsion of Hannah Prescott, whose heels had clicked a frantic retreat into the Miami night. Phones glowed in the audience, clips of the confrontation already spreading like wildfire across social media, hashtags like "Out Serena Shines" and "Respect the Stage" trending in real time. But Serena's focus was elsewhere, her deep brown eyes steady, her breath calm as she prepared to return to the stage, not for glory, but for herself. The gala resumed, the orchestral score swelling with a triumphant melody that invited the performers back for a closing tableau. Serena stepped into the light, her movements fluid, her presence a quiet command that drew every eye. The crowd's warmth washed over her, their applause softer now, laced with a reverence that hadn't been there before. They saw her differently, not just as the aerialist who'd defied gravity, but as a woman who'd faced sabotage and humiliation with unshakable grace. A young performer, a wiry acrobat named Mia, approached her in the wings, her eyes wide with admiration. "You were incredible out there," Mia whispered, her voice trembling with awe. Serena smiled, her expression soft but resolute. "Just doing my job," she said, her tone steady. Though her heart carried the weight of the night's trials, she moved to her mark, joining the other performers in a final bow, her posture regal, her long hair catching the light like a raven's wing. The audience rose, their ovation a tide of admiration. But Serena's mind was on the quiet truth she'd held onto through the chaos. She'd faced a tampered hoop, Hannah's venomous words, and the public unveiling of her engagement. Yet she stood unbroken, her dignity a shield forged in resilience. The diamond ring felt heavy, not from its carats but from the moment it represented. Frederick's love, yes, but also her own strength, shining brighter than any gem. She bowed, her smile restrained but radiant, a beacon of who she was. Not just an aerialist, not just a fiancé, but Serena Brooks, a woman who soared above malice. Backstage, the crew buzzed with quiet excitement, their usual post-show chatter replaced by hushed respect. A stagehand, still clutching a wrench from the rigging check, nodded at Serena. "You held it together up there," he said, his voice gruff but sincere. "Not sure how you did it." Serena met his gaze, her eyes steady. "You just keep moving," she replied, her words simple but weighted with truth. She didn't linger on the praise, didn't bask in the attention. Instead, she adjusted her leotard, her fingers brushing the sequins that still held the stage's light, and prepared to assist with the final cleanup. The gala might have been about Horizon Enterprises, but for Serena, it was about proving something to herself. The crowd's energy shifted as guests began to mingle, their conversations alight with the night's drama. A middle-aged couple in tailored suits approached Serena as she stepped off stage, their faces warm with admiration. "We saw the video already," the woman said, her eyes shining. "The way you handled that, it's inspiring. Our daughter wants to be a dancer. I hope she grows up with your strength." Serena smiled, her voice soft but firm. "Tell her to keep climbing no matter what," she said, then moved on, her focus returning to the task at hand. She didn't need the world's validation, though it came in waves. Guests nodding respectfully, performers whispering her name with awe, phones flickering with clips that had already racked up millions of views. Outside, the digital storm was just beginning. Social media platforms burned with footage of Hannah's outburst, Serena's poised response, and Frederick's commanding defense. Comments poured in, praising Serena's grace, condemning Hannah's cruelty, and celebrating the ring that had sealed the moment. "She didn't just perform, she owned that stage," one post read, shared thousands of times. Another clip, grainy but damning, captured Hannah's venomous words and Serena's unflinching dignity. Trending under "Too Cha Serena Shines," Hannah's online presence crumbled, her Instagram going dark, brand partnerships severed as the court of public. Opinion delivered its verdict. But Serena didn't check her phone, didn't scroll through the hashtags. She wasn't here for vengeance or fame. She was here for the work, for the quiet power of knowing who she was. As the gala wound down, Serena slipped onto the arena's balcony, the Miami skyline stretching before her in a tapestry of coral, gold, and violet. The breeze carried the faint scent of salt and distant music, cooling her skin as she leaned against the railing. The diamond ring caught the fading light, a reminder of the night's unexpected turn. She thought of how easy it would have been to step back, to let Frederick's name shield her from Hannah's malice, to walk away from the stage and its risks. But that wasn't her. She'd chosen the hoop, the height, the challenge because it was where she found herself. Fearless, alive, unapologetic. Frederick joined her, his charcoal suit blending into the dusk, his green eyes soft with pride. He slipped an arm around her waist, his touch grounding her. "You didn't have to do that," she said, glancing at the ring, her voice quiet but warm. He chuckled, a low sound that carried the weight of their shared history. "Yes, I did," he said. "The world needed to know who you are to me. And who you are, period." Serena leaned into him, her long hair swaying in the breeze, her smile faint but true. "They can know whatever they want," she said. "I know who I am." That was the heart of it. Serena wasn't defined by the ring, the crowd, or the viral clips that would live online long after the gala ended. She was defined by the choices she'd made. To climb, to spin, to face sabotage and cruelty without flinching. The world could cheer or judge. She didn't need their applause to stand tall. She was Serena Brooks, a woman who'd turned a tampered hoop into a stage for her strength, who'd met malice with grace and emerged radiant. The skyline glowed, a canvas of possibility, and Serena stood against it, her resolve etched deeper than ever. She didn't need to prove herself anymore, not to Hannah, not to the world, not even to Frederick. She knew who she was, and that was the truest triumph of all. Thank you for joining us through Serena's powerful story of resilience and triumph. What did you think of her unwavering grace in the face of sabotage and cruelty? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know where you're watching from. Your city could spark our next tale. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for more inspiring stories that celebrate strength and dignity. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder of what true courage looks like. Until next time, keep shining and we'll see you in the next story.